Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 8:30. I'll bring the meeting to order of May 26th, 2020. We have an agenda before us. Additions to the agenda, there's an FCSS report and strat plan, and also we'll add in closed session, section 2.7. Is there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Councillor Christie.
I'll move the agenda as amended.
Motion's been made to move agenda as amended. All those in favor? And that is carried. We pre-circulated the regular council meeting minutes of May the 12th. Are there any errors or omissions? Councillor King.
I make a motion. There we go. I'd make a motion to accept the minutes of May 12th as presented.
Motion's been made to accept the minutes of the May 12th meeting as presented. All those in favor? That is carried. Our first agenda item is 5.1.1, policy 13-36. Welcome, Mr. Buchert. Anytime you are ready.
Morning, Mr. Reeve and members of council. This morning we bring RFD 511, policy 1336, maintenance of dirt trail road allowances. This is to update the policy. So a little background, May 19th, committee of the whole meeting. We discussed some of the changes that could be made, and the committee directed the administration to bring back the policy to the next council. So the current dirt trail policy did not reflect, or does not reflect, or did, any issues from the environmental assessment, which we're required to do, which could exceed the allowed dollar amount that was in the policy. When time is available, the department is able to work within the operating expense. Trails will be evaluated for the need for the upgrade. There's limited time to work along the dirt road allowances, as the majority of the road allowance is cropped. Thus limiting the time frame to work in early spring or late fall. So a couple of the outlines in the policy procedure that was or to be changed is number 6. Repairs and upgrades costs over $15,000 are defined as major maintenance. Repair or upgrade costs less than $50,000 are defined as minor maintenance. We've asked to remove that. Repairs or upgrades exceeding $15,000 must be approved by Kneehill County Council. Remove that one. And also number 8 is the annual maintenance requirements will be evaluated at the discretion of the CO or designate in conjunction with other established road maintenance construction programs, such as the road master plan, shoulder pole program, roadside shoulder spraying program. We asked to remove that. Number 9 basically covers that off, assessing the regular maintenance and upgrades of the dirt road. So we're not recommending to leave the dirt road policy. We just want to have some of those changes to reflect what some of the environmental concerns and constraints, and then what additional costs are usually come with those approvals from external, provincial, or federal approval process. We're still planning on doing, as many as we can in a year. I think we're looking at 3 dirt trail upgrades this year, part of our operating expense. This policy and procedure did come out from a group that was formed back in 2016. So it consisted of 6 ratepayers, along with a couple members of council, the CAO, and myself, to come up with some of these guidelines. So these guidelines, I think 1 through 5, still reflect the need from the ratepayers that was discussed at those meetings. 6 through 8 was more of an administration additions to it. So what we're looking for is the council approve as presented. That's our recommended motion. Options would be council approve as presented, council approve policy as amended, council direct administration for further information, or that council receives for information.
Thanks, Brad. Does council have any questions for Mr. Buchert? Councillor Penner.
Upgrade, Brad, what do you mean by upgrade? Just bringing it back to level?
Through the reeve, Councillor Penner. That upgrade would be trying to put established ditches rather than the road itself being the ditch. So if there's the possibility of creating a ditch without causing concern to adjacent landowners, that's what that upgrade would consist of. So as long as we can get that water off of the road, that's the main thing. It's whether it's dirt or gravel, that's the main objective, is to get that water going away. However, sometimes we are constrained by provincial regulations through like AEP, if it's a wetland, whether it's seasonal or full-time, it could hinder some of those, but for the majority of the upgrade would be build a ditch, deal with some of the water, so.
Any other questions from council? Yes, when we struck that working committee on black dirt trails, I actually sat in on that one, and looks like everything that was discussed there, everything that was recommended there is still in the policy. The administration side of it, the $15,000 was something that was added on to by admin. So the gist of the policy still remains the same as what we came up with. Is there any questions, or somebody want to make a motion? Councillor King.
Yeah, I'd make the motion that we approve policy 13-36, maintenance of dirt trail road allowances as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion before us to approve policy 1316 or 1336 as presented. Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Alrighty, next one on the agenda, policy 13-6-2. Anytime you're ready, Mr. Buchert.
So RFD 51.2, again, with the policy review of 13.6.2, a little update on the gravel specifications. Again, May 19th, the committee of the whole meeting discussed on the policy. The administration or council, the committee had directed administration to bring back the policy to the next council meeting. Some of the discussions, the new amendments proposed would allow the county to use a modified road gravel, eliminating a percentage of the fines to better suit our needs. The results of the proposed changes over a longer term is the expected reduction of that, what ratepayers call the slimy gravel that has been present on some of the county roadways. So in the policy itself, what we're really looking at changing is the road gravel. In the old policy, it went off of the 2010 Alberta Transportation Standard Specifications for highway construction. When it's classified as highway construction, as far as Alberta Transportation, that means dirt, gravel. A highway to them is a road allowance, so just to be specific on that. So we're looking at using the 2010 standard for base course, asphalt aggregate, and chip seal aggregate. The change would only come to the road gravel. And the other change in there was the 425 spec. In the old policy, it was written as 7/8. 425 is actually a 1 inch, so it's just clearing that up. So this would allow us, in the future to deal with, like I said, the fines in the gravel, how much we're going to put in there. The 420 spec on the 1250 and the 80 end of the sieve test allows for a fair amount of fines within that gravel. So it will reduce that. However, we do need some fines in there to bind the gravel. If we don't have those fines, it won't bind that gravel to the road and it'll migrate to the ditch side. So what we're looking for is, our recommended motion is council approve as presented of 13.6.2. Some of the options would be council approve the policy as amended, council direct administration to provide further information, or that council receives it as information.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Council have any questions? Counselor Hugo.
Yeah, Brad, is this, the spec, 425 spec gonna be just on new gravel purchases and from the stuff hopefully we're gonna produce from Torrington?
Through the Reeve, Councillor Hugo, this would be for all road crushed gravel, whether we supplied it or we made it or we purchased it. So we'd look at a tender, say we were, tender came out and it was awarded to somebody in the Delia area or the Hand Hills gravel. We would go back with, we'd remove a bunch of those fines out of it and tell them this would be our specs, so.
So there again, it is just for the future purchases then, correct? It's not for existing stockpiles, we're not bringing in screeners for an extra $350 a ton to screen it out and move it again for another 2 or 3 times? Because well, I see if we're gonna be doing that with the existing stockpiles we do have, that's gonna be some of the most expensive gravel probably purchased in Alberta.
Through the Reeve, Councillor Hugo. So this is for new gravel only. I've been in contact, so the only gravel that we have that is contentious right now is the stuff that was left over in the Hand Hills purchased prior to me sitting in this chair back in 2013. Back then it was tested. What we do, and we buy gravel, from 14 or 15 on, is we do a CC test when it gets to our stockpile. So we've got those tests at the pile when it was crushed, and then we do just a confirmation when it gets dumped at the stockpile. We do another test every 1,000. So the gravel we have at, say, the Barrett pile was tested twice. So once when it was crushing and once when it arrived at the stockpile site. So it meets all specifications in the Alberta Transportation 420 spec. The gravel that does not meet the spec is the stuff that was bought back in 2013. And that's the one we're gonna have to deal with at some point in time. But we are looking, the 350 a ton, I don't know where that number comes from because that's not the number I got from a supplier. So we are looking at a screener to come and clean some of that gravel up. We're not gonna move it again. If it works, we would move it right to the pit and do it once. But we don't know that value as of right now.
So what about the stuff that's in the existing stockpiles on the Hiller stockpile and the one north of Trochu? Because that's gonna have to be screened also, because the way I've seen it and the specs that I got off of it, it doesn't even, it barely makes spec, barely. So I'm just curious, like what are our long-term plans? I realize going forward, we're going to be looking at, changing our specs, but we've got, how many tons do we have in the Hiller stockpile?
Through the Reeve, Councillor Hugo. So Hiller, we have a little over 11,000 ton there. So that gravel won't be the most expensive gravel in the county. So that gravel was purchased back in 2013 for $525 a ton at the, what we classify as a Gallagher pit. We're paying a contractor $7.40 to haul it over here. So if it costs us a couple bucks to screen out, we're way under what we're paying for gravel out of Sundre right now. The standard, I say the average cost, we went to tender last year on or this year in the 575 that's coming out of Sundre. The average cost was about 22 bucks a ton. So the gravel that's at Trochu and at Hiller, I agree. We're looking at options to look at those and get that screened out. But again, we're looking at options right now. We have a supplier, Tyalta out of Crossfield, that's willing to bring over a screener and do a test for a day at our Three Hills site and just screen it, and then we'll get a final cost on what that's gonna cost moving forward from today, but.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Brad. There will be value in the screenings that come off of this anyway for black dirt trails and what have you, so it's not like it's wasted. Is there any other discussion to the gravel spec policy? Councillor Christie.
I'll make the motion to approve policy 13-6-2, gravel specifications as presented.
Okay, thank you. We have motion before us to approve the policy 13-6-2 as presented. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried.
Just before
Councillor
you leave,
King.
but how's the new trailer working out?
Through the read counselor Keever, yeah, it's working good. So we're averaging about 40 ton right now. So just to get the weights distributed right on the trailer to the truck, it can haul 40 ton compared to 27 ton. So, I mean, 13 ton more. Just to give an average over a year, we're looking at probably an additional 6,600 ton extra hauling in a year. And on 7 years, that'll give us an extra 43,000 ton. And if you start looking on your average, if we're anywhere from $3 to $5 from the stockpile to the road, that's a significant savings for the municipality. But again, we'll get some details throughout the year as we collect that data and bring it back to council to say, you know, the Super B is working out well. We know there'll be some added expense. You know, there's more tires on that trailer. There's more fuel to burn, pulling that much more weight. What those numbers, final numbers look like, we'll definitely have some numbers for council back in the fall, so.
Okay, Councillor King.
Yeah, just a comment.
Wasn't me.
There we go. I just wanted to comment that I know with the current gravel, we are getting complaints and we are having some problems with some of our roads. However, I also want to acknowledge that our road crews are doing a good job, and I appreciate that. And certainly in my division, we have some roads that have problems, but they're being looked after, so I appreciate it, and I want you to know that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. I'll pass that on to our crews.
Okay, our next agenda item is policy 5-18, location filming policy. Welcome, Ms. Hazelton, and anytime you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Reed, members of council. So this is a brand new policy that we're bringing to you today. So Kneehill County recognizes the importance of the film and television production industry to our area's economic strength. We also understand the need to balance the rights and wishes of our residents with the unique nature and requirements of the film production industry. Our municipality has seen an increase in the amount of interest shown by people in industry wanting to use our public spaces in filming productions. Currently, we're dealing with each of these on their own merit, but have no policy in place to ensure consistency in how we deal with these opportunities. As you are aware, some of these projects are quite large and may require staff involvement outside of their normal day-to-day duties. Administration is proposing that a policy be put in place that is a mechanism for ensuring consistency in how we process these applicants and also provide safeguards for the municipality staff and lands. The attached policy has been drafted by the Planning Department with input from Parks for discussion purposes, which we did have some discussion at the recent Cal meeting regarding this. And again, this is for productions that are not completely on private land. So when they are taking roads, sidewalks, parklands, all those types of things, this provides a policy in place that we can address those things. So our recommended motion is that council move to approve policy 518, location filming as presented.
Does council have any questions for Ms. Hazelton? What is council's wishes? Deputy Reeve McGee.
I'd like to move that we approve policy 518 for the location filming as presented. I appreciate the work that's gone into that, by the way.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion in front of us to approve policy 5-18. Is there any discussion to the motion prior to the question? Seeing as none, call the question. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, Barb. Next agenda item 5.3.2, Special Events Bylaw 1822. Anytime you're ready.
So, we have a current special events, it's not called that, but bylaw in place that is extremely old. So this one we are bringing back just to modernize it and to bring it up. Oh, sorry, thanks. We do have an existing bylaw in place that is extremely old, so we are revisiting that and we're bringing it back to make it more pertinent to today. So under the Municipal Government Act, we have jurisdiction for council to pass bylaws for municipal purposes that respect the safety, health, and welfare of people and protection of people and property, people, activities, and things in, on, or near a public or a place that is open to the public, and provide for a system of license, permits, and approvals. So the current bylaw, 899, was adopted in 1980, and an amendment was added to that bylaw by Bylaw 1291, which was adopted in 1993. So both of those bylaws are considerably old, and they are no longer sufficient in meeting the requirements for current public events. Similar bylaws from our adjacent rural municipalities have been reviewed as part of this process. So this draft is the outcome of a joint effort between the Protective Services Department and the Planning Department, and has been attached again for your consideration. This bylaw refers to any event or function which is held at a public place in the county and to which members of the general public are invited or admitted for a fee or free of charge, but does not include private gathering or events to which members of the public are not invited or admitted. An approved application will be required for these events and will provide a process for ensuring large public events can be held in a responsible and safe manner. So again, there's currently no fees in the master rates bylaw for these. However, when we revisit and do the amendments to the master rates bylaw, we will be incorporating a fee for the applications of these. Our recommended motion is that council move first, second, unanimously consider third, and then third reading for this bylaw.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hazelton. As you had stated, we have discussed this through the committee of the whole meeting last week, so it's not new to us. Are there any questions for Ms. Hazelton? Anybody prepared to make a motion? Councillor Kiever.
I move first reading of Special Events Bylaw 1822 as presented.
All right, we have a motion before us for first reading. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Councillor Penner.
I'll move second reading of bylaw 1822.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion before us for second reading of bylaw 1822. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Councillor King.
Okay, there we go. I'd make the motion that we consider third reading for bylaw 1822.
All right, motion's been made to consider third reading for bylaw 1822. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Councillor Christie.
I'll move third reading of bylaw 1822.
Motion's been made to move third reading, bylaw 1822. Is there any discussion prior to calling the question? I don't see. Oh, Councillor Penner.
Ms. Hazelton, I didn't notice, and maybe I just missed the wording, we talked about may require more than 24-hour.
Oh, we changed that.
Is it there somewhere? So I did see the farm auction part, but I didn't see the 24-hour.
Yeah, so that's under part 5, number 1. So especially that permit. Sorry, my mic's not on, sorry. Under section 5.1, a special event permit will only be valid for a maximum of 24 hours unless explicitly extended by the Development Authority for a longer period. So we did amend the wording there. And we did include farm auctions as an exception.
Are there any other questions or discussion before third reading is called? Seeing as not. I'll call for motion to approve third reading for special events bylaw 1822. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Our next agenda item, 5.3.3, appointment of clerk for SDAB. Anytime you're ready.
Okay, again, under section 627 of the Municipal Government Act, a council must by bylaw establish a subdivision and development appeal board. A council that establishes a SDAB must appoint one or more clerks to the subdivision and development appeal board. Bylaw 1780, adopted February 12th, 2019, is the current bylaw that establishes this appeal board. Included in this bylaw are the functions and duties of the appeal board, the duties of the clerk, secretary, and etc. Administration is requesting to fill the clerk position from the Legislative Services Department, which would align appeals under the most appropriate umbrella. The required training for this position has already been completed by the proposed clerk and is scheduled to be completed by the alternate. So again, the cost of an appeal is currently captured under the operating budget of planning, and future implications would be incorporated in the annual budget process. It should be noted that several appeals falling within the same year would require additional budget allocations. But our recommended motion is that council move to appoint Carolyn Vanderkuel as the clerk to the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board and to appoint Mary Lou Willis as the alternate.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hazelton. Is there any questions for Barb from council? Anybody care to make a motion? Councillor Keever.
Should we be interviewing the appointee?
Deputy Reeve McGee.
I'd like to move to appoint Carolyn Vanderkuel. Oh, sorry. I would like to move to appoint Carolyn Vanderkuel as the clerk to Subdivision and Development Appeal Board and appoint Mary Lou Willis as the alternate.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion before us to appoint as on the board. Is there any discussion to the said motion? Seeing as not, call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is 8.1, new business, levy rates for Marigold. Mr. Hogan.
Since this one works, there we go. So the levy rates for Marigold Library System, so this again is an annual item that's before you as council. When the board looks at their budget for the current year and upcoming years, is they need to go out to their membership and get some endorsement of that budget. That's what the budget and the rates, and that's the item that's before council today. So Marigold has sent this out and they're proposing that for essentially in 2020, you see the number of 1074 and that number would remain the same for the next 3 years is what they're currently proposing. Again, there's a number of supporting documentation attached to the RFD, normal things that are sent out in terms of what the library does, where some of that funding goes, the differences between municipalities that have a library board and don't, and the rates accordingly, and how some of that funding makes its way back into the libraries that are within the villages within our county. So all of that background information is there. And again, the library itself, or the library system itself, is asking for council's endorsement of the rates for 2021 and 2022. So again, the rate of 1074 is a 2020 rate, previously approved. What they're looking for is endorsement that rate would stay the same over the next couple of years.
We do have our package here where it breaks down everything from Marigold. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Hogan? Any discussion? What are council's wishes? Deputy Reeve McGee?
I'd like to approve the Marigold Library Schedule C requisition for Marigold Library System that outlines Marigold's levy rates for municipalities and library boards for 2021 and 2022.
Thank you. We have a motion before us. It's on our screens. Is there any discussion to the motion prior to the question? Any comments from our rep?
Hey, they finally listened to me, they didn't raise the rates again.
Okay, you're taking credit for it, I see that. All right, if there is no discussion or any more questions, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thanks for all your hard work there, Glenn. Our next agenda item is council and committee reports. We have a committee of the whole minutes, and we have an FCSS year in review and strat planning report. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor King? Anytime you're ready.
I'm always ready before the microphone, so. I thought it would be appropriate to give an update to council. FCSS has just recently gone through a strategic planning process, and we've realigned our focus somewhat and our funding priorities. And so included in there, you'll see the principles of what we fund and why. You'll see our three major focuses: improve social well-being of individuals, of families, and of community. And just thought it would be appropriate to bring that to your attention so that you would kind of have an idea of which direction FCS is headed. Included also is the 2019 year in review. Shelley and Angie always do a good job of presenting what's happened in the past year. It's important to note that last year we handled just slightly in excess of $1 million. Our budget will be about 50% or less than that for this year. So a lot of the programs that you would be familiar with, Parent Link and a whole bunch of those other programs, do not exist anymore. And the core programs that we ran, FCSS, will still be available. So things like family and marriage counseling, the community resource workers, those programs are going to continue. Yep, okay. And I think the only other thing I wanted to say is the board had quite a discussion at our last meeting regarding the community resource program. We currently have had 3 workers up to this point. There is absolutely no way we're going to be able to maintain that. But there was a real strong feeling within the board that those community resource workers are important, and having them present and available to the community year-round was important. So the compromise is that we have chosen to fund 2 positions, 2 full-time positions. We lost about $89,000 from Children's Services. They were a funding partner in that program, so we're making that up. So we're making choices within the other funding that we're doing for other programming to cover that lost revenue. So for this year, the cost to fund the 2 positions is going to be $136,000 that will come directly out of the Kneehill Regional FCSS budget, which is about $89,000, $90,000 more than what it was previous. We still have a funding partner. That's Golden Hill School Division has agreed to continue funding. They are continuing their funding at the level they previously were at, which was $45,000 a year. So between that 45,000 and the monies that we're going to come up with within our own program, we're going to be able to maintain 2 positions. We're asking them to increase their focus and broaden their focus. So they're going to do school counseling and preventive work within the school. We're also asking them to work within the community, within the play schools, and with homeschool students. So they are going to be tasked with a much broader focus than what they had previous, but we're going to try to make do with less and do more, believe it or not. So I just thought it was important that you hear that and be aware that there are some big changes coming. If you see Shelley or Angie along the way anywhere, encourage them. I think Shelley is really grieving the loss of a lot of the things that were within our program previous. And so if you got a chance to encourage her, certainly do that. Both Angie and Shelley do fantastic work. So if you get an opportunity, let them know that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor King. Even though the province had promised not to cut FCSS funding, I guess they didn't cut FCSS funding, they cut the programs that were within that. So are there any questions from council for the chairman of FCSS? Councillor Penner.
With COVID here, did they have a little leeway or anything, or was it just done? Is there some funding you can still get because of COVID for this program, or?
No, there was no flexibility at all. There was some COVID funding that community groups could access, but for FCSS, there really was no additional funding. Jerry made a comment that the province hasn't cut FCSS funding, and for this current budget year, that's true. We're getting the same allocation as we did last year. There is no promise going forward. So they've said that FCS will still be funded, but at what level, we don't know. So for the staff has been constantly working through the COVID-19 situation, either at home or in the office. Office is locked, of course, but they are taking appointments and dealing with people still, so.
Does council have any other questions or comments? If not, is there, Deputy Reeve McGee.
I just wanted to say, Ken, that I appreciate what the board has done with such drastic change. That would have been a lot of work to come up with such an excellent strategic plan, and I look forward to seeing how well it works for us and how we can maybe get community on board to help us make it more successful. So thank you for all the work you and your board's done.
Well, I'll say I appreciate the comment, and I will acknowledge that the board has worked hard, and I'm very thankful for the people that are on that board. They've made an effort, and so that needs to be acknowledged as well, so thanks.
Okay, are there any further discussion or questions to do with FCSS or the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes? Councillor Penner?
I'll move that council receive the council and committee reports as presented.
Okay, motion's been made to receive for information, council and committee reports as presented. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Our next agenda item is council follow-up action list. It's been pre-circulated. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? Counselor Christie.
I'll move the council receive the council committee, or the council action items as presented.
Okay, motion's been made to receive the report of council follow-up action list for information as presented. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. That brings us to the close of our regular agenda items. I will call a short recess and we will come back for closed session. Thank you, everyone. Our next item on the agenda is closed session, section 27, privileged information. Would someone like to put us into closed session? Counselor Christie.
I'll move that we move into closed session.
All right, motion's been made to 69. Okay, we are back in open session. We have no motions coming out of closed session. So I will adjourn the meeting at 10 a.m. Thank you, everyone.
Well done.